Hello and welcome back once again to the William Hill Square Ball GA podcast. Delighted to have you with us, Dave McIntyre, in the presenter's chair as usual, and joined again as my co-host today by Darran O'Sullivan. How are we doing?
Good.
We've a lot to get through. We've got a slightly different type of an episode for you today. We're about, 4 or 5 episodes into season 2. We've already spoken to the likes of Johnny Doyle, and we've spoken to Owen Kelly of Tipperary. We spoke to Tommy Walsh, and I'm forgetting one of them. Who am I forgetting that we spoke to?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to forget this
Kieran
one.
Whelan.
I didn't either. I never saw a fanboying like it.
I know. I was hero worshipping when we had Kieran Whelan, our first dub across the 2 seasons of the Square Ball podcast with us 2 weeks ago. So they're all in the archive, as are all 15 episodes from last season as well. So really go back into them. Spoke to the likes of Kevin Cassidy and Sean Kavanagh, Darren, of course, Aisling Thompson. We had some brilliant stuff last year as well. And none of that will have dated in any way, as we keep saying to our viewers and to our listeners. Dive back in if you're enjoying what you're hearing. It's all there waiting for you. Do subscribe to our YouTube page. You'll get all of the episodes in full there at William Hill Ireland and the Square Ball on YouTube. You can go onto the William Hill Ireland Instagram page and Twitter page as well, where there is a load more great sports content. And wherever you get your podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, make some suggestions for any potential guests you'd like in the future. Big reaction to the Owen Kelly episode last week. What a legend he was. Interesting, I was doing the commentary for GA Plus on Tip Limerick on Sunday, and Owen Kelly's son was playing in the game between the camogie match and the hurling match, and I talk about a chip off the old block, the way he moved, the way he hurled, the way he carried himself, the skill level. Absolutely, you could pick him out a mile away.
Can't beat good breeding.
You can't beat good breeding. There's serious pedigree in that fella, and if he's got half the talent that his dad had, well, maybe he might be an episode on the Square Ball podcast at some stage in the future. We're going to do a sort of a State of the Nation episode today, myself and Darren, because we're coming into today's episode on the back of an absolutely unbelievable weekend of Provincial Championship football. We're going to have a little chat about the rules and the way they're affecting the championship, what's coming down the line, who are favourites to win the All-Ireland from here, maybe a little bit of an assessment of some of the riders and the runners, the likes of Kerry and Galway and Dublin, after a couple of rounds of the Provincial Championships, and talk about everything else besides. So are you primed? You're ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, so we'll start off with the fact that you were in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday night. There was a real bang of the 1990s off this Munster semi-final, when Cork used to play Kerry, trying to take Kerry off their pedestal, as they would have done in the late 80s and at times in the 1990s as well. And while maybe not the crowd that you would have got at some of those games 20, 25 years ago, watching it, you're on the edge of your seat. And I haven't felt that way watching Cork and Kerry for a long time.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Oh, sorry. I was just engrossed in it. Yeah, it was. Do you know, it was funny. 2 weeks ago, we talked to Kieran Whelan about the Leinster Championship, and I was kind of thinking, geez, you feel sorry for the current crop that they don't experience this type of atmosphere. And look, it was a pity there wasn't that big a crowd, but the atmosphere was unbelievable. The only mistake I made is I went into the south stand and I sat in the middle of everyone from Cork. So when things were getting tight, I was getting a bit of ribbing. But no, it was brilliant. It was, you were just engrossed in it. And after 20 odd minutes, it kind of looked like, oh, Kerry are going to run away with it. But the new rules have taken away that you're safe with any lead. And just Cork just decided, you know what, if we're going to go out, we're going to go out with a fight.
Nothing to lose.
No.
For any of these teams who are underdogs going into these games, like before we get into where we think Kerry are as potential All-Ireland champions, I've seen a lot of games already. I was going to say this summer, obviously we're still in spring, but where the underdog is utilising the rules better than the favourite. And so I've seen Sligo run Mayo really close. That's a one-score game. We've seen Leitrim take on Mayo and only go in at half-time a point down and still stick with them for much of the second half. We have seen Wicklow lose by 9 to Dublin and keep it really tight for long periods of the first half. Not in my lifetime have Wicklow been able to hold on to Dublin's coattails in a championship match. We saw Antrim score 1-3 against Armagh. We saw Down come back from the dead against Fermanagh. We've seen a really entertaining game between Monaghan and Donegal. And while some of their contests in the teens, like 2013 and 15 Ulster finals, were epic contests for the way they kind of gripped the nation, and Monaghan were winning their first Ulster title since the 80s, a lot of the game was really boring. Like Conor McManus might score 3 from play off 4 possessions. He wasn't going to touch the ball for 15 minutes. And yet, Donegal were scoring freely. Monaghan came right back into it in the last 20 minutes with the 2-pointers. And the 2-pointer seems to have had such dramatic effect on these football matches that it has closed the gap rather than widened it. Because I know one of the reasons they took the 4-point goal away was they were worried that these one-sided provincial massacres would become even more so. It's had the opposite effect.
Yeah, I actually agreed with taking away the 4-point goal because I do think it probably would have had that effect. But of the 2-pointers, I actually think that the better teams, or the stronger teams we'll call them, they're so programmed to be safe. The risk of going for the 2-pointer isn't, or the reward isn't big enough, so they tend to keep it a bit safer. Whereas the so-called weaker teams, the reward is huge. Mm-hmm. And like even the Kerry Cork game the weekend, I think, no, I'm not saying Cork are a weaker team, but obviously they were underdogs. I think they kicked 6 2-pointers in the game. Kerry kicked 1 and it was in extra time. I'm not even sure they'd have many other attempts. But Cork saw the reward, and once one went over, the buzz from the crowd, it was electric, to be fair. And that's what I'm seeing. A lot of the stronger counties, they don't see the reward in going for the 2-pointer, whereas the weaker counties, they're kind of going, geez, we get 1 or 2 of these, you're pulling the lead back. So Kerry were up by 7 points after 23 or 4 minutes. I thought, game over, ball burst. Couple of 2-pointers, Driscoll, he did it the same the week before for Cork.
That curling effort from right to left was out of this world.
Yeah.
So what is the reason
I think it's a risk
that
reward
they're pre-programmed?
Yeah, it takes a while to get out of it.
Or is it that they know they're going to have the majority of the possession and the majority of the territory, so they will therefore have more attacks, and so there's no need for them to be going for it?
There's a bit of that, but I definitely think teams have been, like, players have been playing this safe football for close to a decade, like, and it's very hard to break out of that mould of thinking about turnovers and missed shots. And I don't like stats. No, they're important at different times, but the first thing you see is Dave had 30 possessions, he had 7 shots, he only got 3 scores. Oh, he hit 4 wides. Do you know, like, so
what if those 3 scores are 2-pointers?
Well, that's the difference now. But it's just, it takes a while to get out of that. I even found with Kerry, the first couple of league games, I don't even think they knew about the rules, because they definitely weren't playing towards them. And it takes a while to get it out of your system. And like the other part of it as well, the supposed weaker counties, it's really highlighting how good some of the footballers are, because some of the 2-pointers, like you mentioned Conor McManus, if McManus was kicking him, we'd be talking about him, but they're kind of going on the radar. Some of the scores being kicked by supposed weaker counties are massive. But I just think the bigger counties, yes, they think they're going to have more ball. They don't have to go for them. They think they'll have enough opportunities to chip away at the 1-pointers and maybe create a goal. But the supposed weaker counties, they see the reward in it. They can see the 2-2-pointers, all of a sudden a 10-point lead is down to 6. All of a sudden that's 2 kicks to the ball, 2 goals. Do you know? So I just think that the weaker counties are seeing the reward in it. I think they're all working on it too. I don't see, like, don't know about other, I can't see Kerry working on it too much. But then I look at some of the players, are they consistent 2-point kickers? David, yes, Sean Shea would be. Tom Sullivan, I think.
Paddy, surely he's capable of it.
They're all capable of it.
But they're not working it.
But are they capable of doing it 8 out of 10?
They don't need to do it 8 out of 10.
Yeah, though. But that's the thing. That's what the way players are programmed now. Do you know?
You're not. Okay, so you're thinking this is almost a muscle memory thing. So I'll put it to you. You're telling me that one of the reasons that a Mayo or a Kerry, and Stephen Poacher, the Leitrim manager, he had said he had analysed Mayo and he had seen that they were the worst or the least frequent 2-point shooters in Division 1 of the Alliance League this year. So he knew that Leitrim, could drop inside the arc. They obviously can't play the deep drop that Poacher would traditionally have done with the teams he's coached in the past. They can't put the lowest of low blocks like he would like to do with 15 men behind the ball because of the new rules. Yeah. But he was happy enough to keep Leitrim inside the arc, in the knowledge that, and certainly in the evidence of the league, that Mayo were not taking on these 2-point opportunities. And then the opposite at the other end of the field, he was encouraging his Leitrim players to take on the 2-point chance at every opportunity and make their midfielder, whose name escapes me now, the number 8, who had a massive game.
Massive, yeah, I was the same.
What a kicker of the ball he was, aside from everything that he fetched in the middle of the field, worked the ball to him. And because Mayo aren't willing to come out beyond the arc to attack the ball carrier, they were getting the ball into his hands regularly. So if Kerry aren't willing to get Clifford outside the arc to kick it as he would, like shelling peas, he's so good off both feet. They're not willing to do that against the weaker teams, so-called weaker teams, because they think they'll have more and more possessions and attacks and territory. I'll put it to you, they're even less likely to do it against a Donegal or a Dublin or a Galway, because they won't accept the risk of working hard to get a shooting opportunity and then giving the ball away.
Why I would say Kerry would be different to Mayo. I do think Kerry would obviously have better forwards than Mayo. I actually don't think Mayo have the players
To win the All-Ireland.
Well, even to do the 2-pointers, to be honest.
Okay.
Ryan O'Donoghue, I think, would. There's not many more I'd pick out and go, I trust him to kick this on a regular basis. Where I think Kerry don't do this, I think Kerry are better than possibly the rest of the country in playing in the close quarters. I think they're very good with speed of hand, speed of thought, in terms of little triangles here and there and creating spaces. I think they know they can create chances even against, goal chances even against packed defences. I think they're better than most of the other counties at that. The reason why I find it a funny one not to go for it is because you get a chance to reset, kick it wide, and you get a chance to set. There's no short, really fast kickouts at the moment either. So everything's going out. Most teams are set. So,
And as we're seeing, you're at a major disadvantage on your own kickout.
Oh.
Because the opposition can attack the ball in a way that you can't.
massive. Sure, like if you're setting a team up against that, you're kind of going, a couple of big lads, get up with the fist and drive that thing 20 or 30 yards back the way it came. Yeah, I just think it takes a bit of time.
But they're not. Are they going to do it in an All-Ireland quarter-final against Armagh? Why would they? They'll see. We definitely can't give the ball away
The
now.
better teams are, I probably have to use my phrasing right here, the teams who think they'll be winning in All-Ireland, they could be holding this back. They could 100%. Kerry could be working on 2-pointers every night in training for all I know. And then...
That's hardly the case, is it?
Why show your hand too
But
early?
they were nearly beaten on Saturday night. They should have been beaten.
Well, no, to be fair, on Saturday night the conditions were, I'm not going to say they're awful because we're used to the rain and the pitch is perfect down there, but it was a messy kind of rain the whole time, so it wasn't. No, Cork didn't.
Didn't stop Cork, working the
there goes
2-pointers.
that argument. But like, I do think it's one of them ones where you will find.
And Leitrim Mayo, dreadful conditions.
Yeah.
And Leitrim,
I do think it's something that the likes of Kerry, Dublin, possibly not at the moment because they're kind of transitioning a small bit, still trying to find out what the best team is. The likes of Donegal, Jim McGuinness is definitely holding something. He will definitely have something new for when they get to Croke Park.
they obviously have shooters that
Yeah.
can score from range, likes of Murphy, likes of Gallen if he gets into the starting 15, the likes of McBrearty, who's just got this wand from no matter how far out he is, the likes of Kieran Thompson, who just had an incredible
He's
game
beautiful
against
left-footed
Monaghan at the
Thompson.
weekend. But they don't take on anywhere near as many as Monaghan would have done in that game, or like Cork would have done.
But they're more
or Galway.
calculated. They'd be very calculated under Jim McGuinness. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of stats, there's a lot of... They know exactly what they're doing.
So you think there's a chance that when Donegal get to Croke Park, that they're going to be bringing the likes of Murphy out around the arc, as opposed to just doing what they're doing with Darragh Wheel and Patter Mogan, they were breaking the lines and just clipping points
If
over
I'm
for fun.
involved in a team playing Donegal, I don't want to get in a running match with them. They will run through you. So that's when you start kind of blocking off the round the D. And that's when they'll go, right, now we need to get our kickers out here. And I think they have that ability, because if you don't block off the D and you're kind of wary of 2-pointers and they catch you on the hop with runners because of the way they run it from every angle, you're not going to stop them. We've seen it already throughout the end of the league and the start of the championship. We don't have many defenders like a Keith Higgins or a Mark Shea, proper one-on-one. There's not many of them out there, if any, at the moment. There's a lot of frees being caught, a lot of fellas being caught. It's very hard to mark one-on-one at the moment. So teams are going to start to drop off and protect that D, depending on who you're playing.
But you can't do it, obviously, like you used to be able to do. There's only 11 lads in there.
Yeah, no, you're not able to do it as you used to do it, but the coaches are always trying to think of something.
Isn't it amazing, though, that we are going back to a game where there is a real premium on finding out-and-out man markers and fetchers and long-range shooters? Three elements of the game that were vanishing.
But they were the three best aspects of the game. Like, there was nothing better. The last one I can really remember, James O'Donoghue and Keith Higgins in
2014 semi-final replay.
Unbelievable.
What a matchup.
And like it was unbelievable.
And I think James O'Donoghue scored 4 or 5 from play, and yet you could still arguably have given Keith Higgins the man of the match award.
Yeah, it was like Mark Shaves, Mark Byrne-Brogan, and there was no shouts of I need cover. Just that pride and
do your job.
Yeah. So that's starting to come back into it. Obviously the high fielding, keepers are finding it hard to get that kick out. There's no real space there. A lot of it's just been lumped out there.
Well, there's no real space if you choose to congest the area, which some teams appear to be doing, and that's why we're hearing some managers and indeed some pundits as well almost bemoaning the fact that it's so chaotic off the kick out. And I just can't. I actually find myself bristling when I hear those sorts of complaints, because for the last 10 years, the kick out has been Stephen Cluxton popping off a 30-yard ball to Mick Fitzsimons, and everyone in the stadium just goes, oh, here we go now. They're going to slowly work this ball down the field. You do want chaos, but it doesn't need to be chaos, as Galway showed against Roscommon at the weekend. They sprayed everybody out. Now, it's easier for them because they have 5 or 6 lads who are man mountains. They've got Conroy, they've got Keane Darcy, they've got Marr, they've got Tierney, they've got McDade. All of these lads,
they're all massive.
They're all 6-footers, and they can all claim primary possession cleanly. But Paul Conroy isn't going to catch a ball in a group of 12 lads battling for the same kick out. Galway just fan them across the field to try and make as far as they can one-on-one contests. Why aren't other teams doing
Kerry
that?
did it in the league where they moved Joe O'Connor to wing forward. And I actually, only for the injuries they've got, he's obviously back in midfield, but I actually think he found his confidence from going out there, because you could actually attack a kick out without the wrestling, let's say, or the chaos as we're calling it, around the middle. He was coming from a different angle where he'd probably get an extra 15, 20 yards on his run. And a guy that big or strong, I think it's the way that teams are going to go if they have that size available to them. That you have 2 big wing forwards, one anyway, either side. You obviously have your 2 in the middle, that'll be wrestling away. But it's the way to go as a midfielder. You're actually going up for a ball without the wrestling. You're getting a run at it, and Joe O'Connor actually went there for Kerry, built a lot of confidence, has been exceptional for Kerry since. But I actually think if he hadn't gone out there and got that confidence, we probably wouldn't be seeing the Joe we're seeing at the moment. But yeah, I just, like, my thing is watching the game the weekend, conditions weren't great. Shane Murphy had come into goal, kind of, sub-goalie, probably hardest position to play in football or soccer, whatever it is, because you're not expecting to come on, but he came on, tough conditions. There was a couple of kick-outs where I was like, kick it, it's there. There was a 30-yard dink. A bit wary of doing it.
Yeah, particularly in the wet and the wind and the rain.
Everything just went out. But it made the contest, because it was carnage.
And isn't it brilliant to watch?
It was unbelievable.
Managers lose a bit of control and they start complaining.
Yeah.
Because they've been in total control.
But that's what we want.
Automatically, the players are almost automatons in the last decade, and managers don't like this sudden onset of manic chaos around what in rugby you would call the breakdown. In GAA, it's the breaking ball, because it's so difficult to win kickouts clean.
But like, if we threw on the Kerry Cork game from the weekend and just had the sound effects from the crowd, it was nothing but oohs and ahs and and grunts and groans and yays. Like Cork, they brought a madness to it when they decided, you know what, we might as well go. But the amount of hand passes they lost in the game, there was no control in that game. It was carnage, and it was end to end. But that's what made it the contest.
And that element of control is what had left Gaelic football on its knees.
Yeah.
People didn't want to watch anymore.
There was hardly any structure to the game the weekend.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who was marking who by the end of it, who was playing where. Like, which is alien to us. But it was the way it was. And I came out of the game and I was like, geez, be careful what I wish for. I've been wishing for these great Cork Kerry games. I was kind of regretting it. I thought we were lucky to get out of it, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant. It breathed new life into the Munster Championship. All of a sudden, if Kerry are playing Cork again, you will get a bigger crowd. For me, personally, I'm there going, if Cork can bring that chaos, that aggression, that intensity to every game with their size and power, they're a problem. But if they go into games wanting to be structured and only play when they have the ball, they'll find themselves in the same position they've been for the last 10 years. But it's about creating that chaos and that aggression and that intensity and getting the crowd on side, because if you get the crowd on side and a couple of scores go your way or the opposition have a couple of wides, you could actually see it seeping into the game. The momentum just swung.
And these momentum swings are lasting longer. They're lasting for 10, 15, 20 minute spells. I went up to watch Dublin play Armagh in the athletic grounds in the league. Dublin barely won a kick out in the first half. And because Armagh were dominating the kickouts and then getting shots away, leading to more Dublin kickouts, Dublin just couldn't get out of their own half. And then whatever happened at half time, it's like the two players, Dublin were about 12 points down. It was a dreadful performance. It's like the two sets of players changed jerseys. And when Armagh came back out, they couldn't win a kick out. And either Dublin were winning it clean or winning all the breaks. And they nearly got back. They got back at one point to within 4.5 points of them. How, and this was Roscommon's biggest issue against Galway, they couldn't win a kick out. If you're coaching a team and you don't have the fetchers like Paul Conroy or Joe O'Connor, and Roscommon didn't, what do you do? How do you, if you can't get the short one away, which is risk, big risk, what can managers do?
But just on that, I actually think the way the game has gone, the control is gone. We mentioned it. The managers have no, like, the game is getting that bit quicker. Do you know what? Normally, you win a free, I'll leave it down. Darren will walk over and take it. While he's doing that, I showed in a couple of messages. Now you get fouled and you just keep soloing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's like rugby league, just tap and go, and there's no stopping. But for me, like, it is about being creative. If you don't have a big kicker or a big fielder, I'm getting everyone to make a burst in, and I'm kicking it over them.
Yeah.
And it'll go over their heads, and you're looking for a half hour to get it on the bounce.
So you need your keeper to be able to, Patton style.
Not everyone has that in their locker. That's
meters.
the other thing.
Yeah.
Like Patton has I saw him in Clarny this year, and his kickouts are unbelievable. Some of them were inches away from working, but it was unbelievable. The kicking, like it was,
or Began or Rafferty. These guys can drive the ball.
Yeah, you need to.
All things being equal, wind-wise, they can drive the ball 50, 60 metres. So are Dublin going to have a big issue with that if Stephen Cluxton is their starting number one? He hasn't got the length of a kick that he had 10 years ago. And if they're in a situation like they were against Armagh that night, he didn't start in goal that night, but if they are, and Cluxton doesn't have that booming kick, where do Dublin go? Because they have lost Fenton, they've lost McCarthy, their best two fetchers.
You're relying on really hard running, which is energy sapping. And I remember, like, for my last few years, and the kickouts are such a pain in the hole. Because everything was short, and normally ball goes dead, it's my chance for a breather, but every cornerback thought they were a playmaker, and everyone's bombing around the place. But it was hard running, like, and you'd be zapped. And as a forward, you're kind of trying to cheat a small bit, and then hoping that your man doesn't get it. So he's gassed after making these hard runs. I think it's going to have to come to that, where they're kind of overloading one side and they have a pacey defender that can sprint 50 or 60 yards, get the ball on the hop.
Yeah.
But that's hard work. And if
the sort of kick-outs he used to hit Connolly and Flynn with, that low trajectory,
into
runs
space.
to the side.
But if you do get turned over, fellas don't have much in the legs because they're after decoy runs here, there and everywhere. So it's hard work. Can you keep that going for a full game? You take out the kick out. It's a big part. Well, it was a massive part of Dublin's attack for a number of years. And obviously, if it wasn't on, you had Fenton around the middle. All of a sudden, your two best assets are gone. I do think it's a case of overloading, and then it's hard runs. It's trying to create little pockets. No, in fairness, there's probably nobody better at finding the pockets than Cluxton. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be finding the pockets. And you try and find them pockets on a wet day in Croke Park where the ball skids. It's that bit harder. And like we said, when the momentum goes against you, it's very hard to turn it around. And you can't get any messages in either, because you can't delay anything. Everything's really quick. And that was one thing I noticed the weekend. bar there was a good few injuries, knocks.
But you need someone to go down with an injury.
You do need someone to go down.
Yeah.
And it's only a bit of game management, and sometimes players just aren't thinking that. And like without it, the game just goes and goes and goes, and next thing you know, you're 12 points down, but you go in at half time and you turn that around very quickly. But yeah,
there are some that are calling for the. It's not going to happen this year, but maybe when they look at things at the end of the season, when they've had a real proper sample size of how the new rules are bedded in. Some calling for the kick over the 40-metre arc, the kick out over the arc to be tweaked so that a goalkeeper can actually pick somebody out inside the arc.
Yeah.
Now, the risk is we go something close to being back to where we were a year ago, but maybe the hope would be the teams will man up and go full press. But we'll end up getting loads of these short kickouts away, won't we?
Oh, they will. And like teams will start to
drop. I don't want to see that.
Like
again.
at the end of the day, like you go for a stronger, weaker team playing against each other. The weaker team will drop off that bit.
Yeah.
And they'll leave Matic. They'll go, right, this is our breather chance here.
And we'll lose all of these contests.
Yeah, at the moment, it's very hard to complain about any of the games that we've seen, which is alien. Like, even the big games are boring.
Like, I'm coming in on the train this morning, knowing we were going to get to talk about all these things. Like, I'm buzzed. And I watched every game at the weekend. And I know I'm compromised talking about GA+, but that app where you can just go in and every game is just there in full for you to watch back. It's an incredible facility to have. And it was for that reason that I was able to watch 5 GA matches at the weekend and attend one.
Well, just on that, and I know I've nothing in it, we've never had so much available to us. Like, we're spoiled. And if something's not available now, we're moaning about it. But, like, we can see so much now. And if you don't see it on the day, you see it the next day or all during the week. Like, it is amazing. Yeah, I just think at the moment, for the first time, like, the hurling was unbelievable the weekend. Normally, football wouldn't get a look in on a Monday or a Tuesday after it. But the football was just as good.
Well, the only football discussion after a weekend like this would be about the fact that Mayo had beaten Leitrim by 25 points.
Yeah.
And that Donegal and Monaghan, the winner was 14-12. Yeah. And that Kerry had beaten Cork yet again by 18 points and Cork never laid a glove on them. But it's the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
We're buzzed by every single game, even down for Mana. And I'd say for our viewers or listeners to the Square Ball pod today, if there was a game that they didn't see at the weekend, that was probably the one. The last 10 or 15 minutes of that game was total chaos.
Yeah, but like it's gas too. For I don't know how long we're hearing about the Provincial Championships they're dead. There's nothing in them. The games we watched the weekend wouldn't make you feel like that's all that mattered.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to that. So I've been advocating for a while that the Provincial Championships be disconnected entirely from the All Ireland, and we're not at that point yet, but we're not a million miles away from it. The only real connection is that a provincial finalist is guaranteed a place in the All Ireland series, which is only relevant to a small handful of counties. It's irrelevant to the weakest of counties. So the counties that are maybe in the bottom half of Division 4 that really have no chance of getting to a provincial decider. Maybe Tipperary might have felt that if they'd managed to stick with Clare for a bit longer at the weekend, they could have forced it. But generally a Division 4 team has almost no chance of getting to a provincial final. So you're looking at maybe the top half Division 3 teams, Offaly, Fermanagh, Kildare, those sorts of teams, Clare. For all the Division 1 and 2 teams, it's irrelevant. Yeah. So there is essentially in the minds of the Kerrys and the Galways and the Dublins, Donegals, there is no connection between the Provincial Championship and the All-Ireland Series. So it has been severed for all intents and purposes. And yet, there hasn't been a single Provincial Championship game that we've watched in the last 2 weeks that saw a game where two teams weren't going at it 100%, full bore, heart and soul, the way they did 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, like it's flawed in the system. Like they're not all equal anyway. Munster, Connacht,
We'll get to that in a moment, the structure of it. But on that point that despite the fact that under the current structure, there's very little connection or relevance to the All-Ireland Series and the Provincial Championships. But has it affected how teams are approaching these games in any way?
No, because at the end of the day, I think players have a bit of pride as well. Like, obviously the weaker counties are going, it's an opportunity. Clare or Tipperary get to a Munster final. Who knows with these new rules? Who knows with the conditions what it might bring?
Well, for Tip Clare, it's slightly different in that
but like the game
they have to win to get into the All-Ireland.
Like Monaghan, Donegal, they're both in All-Ireland. You're telling me Monaghan, like after the first half they had, could have easily said, oh look, this is gone from us.
Yeah.
Not a hope. Sure, they came out second half. Like, I still think that pride is there for the bigger counties. Kerry, Cork the weekend. Like, that was
Kerry were desperate to win that game, weren't they?
I seen a clip of Paddy after the game. Maybe a bit of relief as well. I saw a clip of him. He gave poor old Dr. Mike Finnerty a heart attack. He came up behind him and he had the fist clenched and he gave a good yeah or whatever he was shouting.
Jack O'Connor's reaction to the full-time whistle.
It means a lot. You imagine if Cork had won that game, the celebrations in Cork. Do you know, in the semi-final, that's all it was.
And the soul searching that it would have left Kerry with. All the questions
huge.
that they would have been
like
left
someone's
with.
got, it's only a Munster title. Tell that to the players on the pitch that day. Do you know, tell it to the players on the pitch above in Donegal and Monaghan the weekend. Do you know, the games this coming up this weekend, it still means a lot. It's just a case of finding its place.
Yeah. Well, I think this element of the debate is most relevant to two teams who are already guaranteed a place in the All-Ireland. So Cork, Kerry, Donegal, Monaghan. We'll see it this weekend in the Ulster semi-final, or maybe it's the weekend after when Donegal are taking on Tyrone and when Armagh are taking on Down. All four teams guaranteed a place in the All-Ireland. In no way is the fact that they're already going to get an opportunity to contest Sam Maguire going to take away from these games. It didn't matter in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at the weekend. And I think when we see Galway and Mayo go at it in a Connacht final, it's going to have the feel of a Connacht final of 30 years ago. And so the question is then asked, why retain any connection to the All-Ireland series? The provincial councils obviously want to remain relevant, but they've taken away the preliminary season competitions, which essentially are provincial championships, but they're only seen as warm-ups. They're gone. It would allow you to get a nice break between provincial championship and the All-Ireland series. And then you get to the side of the argument where it's totally unfair that Clare can get into the All-Ireland by beating Limerick and Tipperary, two Division 4 teams, and the two teams that finished above them in the league, Kildare and Offaly Division 1 winners, gone. They've no chance of playing in the All-Ireland this season. How is that fair?
It's not. And I do think do you know what? It's nearly tradition. Oh, this is just the way it is. And we've tweaked so much already. They just don't want to lose that control. But I think if you do take it away, it's a better competition. Like, and I love the Munster Championship. I love the Ulster. Like, they're great. And there's nothing better than beating your neighbours. But play it early in the year. And all of a sudden, maybe it makes it more competitive. I don't know. Maybe, like, one of the, I suppose, the weaker counties are that bit fitter at that time of the year. Conditions aren't as good. But as far as I can see, the only reason that it's been kept in the position it's in is tradition and the provincial councils just trying to cling to some bit of importance. But the importance is there. But it's
Would
like
Armagh or Antrim have
it.
tried any less against Armagh if there wasn't a potential place in an All-Ireland series available for them getting to the Ulster final? They still go at them.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's only the position in the calendar that's going to change. You're telling me that if you played this in February and March, that Kerry and Cork wouldn't go hammer and tongs, or Antrim.
So is that what you would advocate? Then, well, you scrap the league and you put these. I'd be totally against that.
I'd put it before the league. No, I love the league. Never scrap the league.
So if you put the Munster Championship before the league, is that not just
that's your pre-season?
The McGrath, is it the McGrath Cup that you would have played in Munster?
Yeah, it kind of takes our place. You could put everything back a couple of weeks. I know, like it's a hard one to talk about because obviously there's more teams in Leinster and then Connacht and Munster a bit smaller, and so it's hard when.
But it's straight knockout. Like you're running it off over the course of 4 weeks.
Yeah, would you
maybe
run off in 4
2
weeks?
weeks after the league.
Yeah.
So
I'll be honest. I do it before the league. I think the league.
They're
is the
not
best.
fit and ready to go. Then
I think you
are demeaning the provincial championships.
No, they're all fit now. They're all fit. From the first round of the league, they are fit. these lads don't get on.
But it's not championship fair in February. We're talking, you and I here, about how incredible the first couple of weeks of the Provincial Championships have been. It's not summertime, but it is at least April. The pitches are in better condition. It's a bit warmer, albeit there's wind and rain.
Yeah.
And the teams have a full league campaign behind them. They're flying over the sod now.
So it is what it is, so.
Yeah, but you're saying do this in February.
Yeah.
But then it's just the McKenna Cup.
It's not. It's the Munster
It's
Championship.
not, though.
It is. It's
No, it's but Munster Championship in February when it's
Look,
freezing and it's dark and you're not going to get the crowds.
The
And
teams are, but there's nothing else going on. At the moment, the weekend, you had Munster Championship on, you had Hurling Championship on, you had rugby on, you had soccer on, horse racing. There was too much on. So you're going to lose people for that anyway. Like,
but in February you've got Premier League, Champions League, Six Nations.
All right,
Racing,
you have an argument
rugby.
for everything. I just think my thing is, if you keep it where it is, I don't know. I'd like a nice gap, not a nice gap, a decent sized gap between league and championship.
Okay, so
Like, I
what
think the
if
league
you were
is
to
the best
run the league
competition.
off in its place it currently occupies in the calendar,
Yeah.
and the All Ireland finals are put back 2 to 3 weeks,
Yeah.
which then gives you an opportunity to finish the league, allow the teams contesting league finals to actually prepare for them and to take them seriously, which the current situation doesn't allow.
No.
And leads us to a situation where there's clubs or there's counties actually not wanting to reach a league final. So that changes. Then you get 2 weeks for teams to get ready to go for the Munster Championship or the Provincial Championship, and then 2 weeks before the All Ireland series begins. Would you be happy with that?
Possibly, yeah.
And not playing these competitions, these like age-old brilliant competitions in February.
Yeah,
So
but,
picture it in your mind. You're playing in the Munster Championship and your league hasn't even begun.
Yeah, I know, but like my thing is with it, the league is brilliant because you have all teams of equal measure playing against each other. So Division 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then you go into your All Ireland series or Tailteann Cup, and it's still the same in terms of teams who are in the top 16 are in the All Ireland and bottom 16 in the Tailteann Cup, and it is a case of it's still very even. And there's still that kind of, there might be a bit of a nagging thing from a rivalry that happened in the league or something went a bit feisty and you're carrying that in and it's just rolling. Whereas sometimes you can go from league, and for a couple of counties, maybe some of the games, well, up to this year have been very easy, and it just takes the intensity out and maybe the interest out and the size of the game. Like you could finish the league with Kerry and Dublin or Tyrone Armagh, and then the next Kerry game you see they're playing no disrespect Waterford or Tipperary. Do you know, so it jumps, it falls off a cliff. Whereas you could go from Donegal and Tyrone playing each other, finishing the league, and then 3 weeks later, the first round of the All Ireland series, Donegal are playing Kerry. Do you know, I just think it just quality games all over, whereas I just think there can be a bit of a drop off, and I think that's where the interest goes, and that's where the negativity comes in as well, like, because you forget about a competition very quickly. Like the league is brilliant and we talk about some of the great games, and then there's a bit of a lull because some teams don't want to get in it and the games are kind of wishy-washy, and then you go into some of the provincial championships. To be fair, it doesn't really happen in Ulster, but up to this year, Leinster, Munster and Connacht, there'll be a couple of woeful games and just the interest falls, and then it's very negative.
Yeah.
That's my thing with
I
it.
kind of see your point to an extent, but I think the rules have amended that to a lot.
Yeah, hopefully.
Like we've discussed, that there are better games
Yeah.
in the provincial championships. Even the Leinster Championship this year has been really good. Like the game between Meath and Offaly last weekend was a brilliant game. Kildare-Westmeath was a brilliant game. Laois's win against Wexford, no one saw it coming. There's been loads of really good games. We've seen what's happened in Munster. We've seen what's happened in Connacht with those Mayo-Sligo, Leitrim Mayo. Galway-Roscommon was a disappointment, but I think that's probably more on Roscommon than anything else. And Ulster, again, has been really good, apart from Cavan Tyrone. And like Roscommon, Cavan just didn't show up that day. I think it's more of a calendar issue. The league issues are purely calendar based.
Yeah.
That the two teams that reached the league final this year that was purely out of desperation to avoid relegation.
Yeah.
That's the only reason Kerry and Mayo got to the decider. And once Donegal beat the last 3 All-Ireland champions in their opening 3 rounds, you could tell that they were exactly where they wanted to be, and there was no real need for them to be pushing for a league final, knowing they had to take on Derry in Ballybuffet a week after the final. So they have to find room in the calendar for teams to take the league seriously from start to finish and still feel comfortable enough that they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for the opening round of the Provincial Championships. We've agreed on a lot this morning. That's one thing I would totally disagree with. I would hate, like we talk about wanting to retain some sort of value and relevance for the Provincial Championships. In my opinion, and you've obviously played the game at a higher level than me, my opinion would be within 5 years of running off the Provincial Championships in February in the piss and rain,
possibly
that they're within 5 years they're gone.
But we'd need the Provincial Championships to stay at this quality. Now, they've been very good so far. So let's say this time next year, we're still talking about how good the games have all been. It's kind of leveled the playing field a bit. But let's say in a year down the line, the bigger teams have come to terms. They're a bit looser with their 2-point kicking. They're a bit tighter with their marking of the, I suppose, the weaker counties. And they are winning by 20, 25 points in. They're going, right, there's another argument. I would 100% agree. The calendar is the only issue at the moment. Like, from a spectacle point of view, football's in a good place compared to what it was even 12 months ago. But calendar is the big issue. For me, it's actually not that big an issue. Like, you put everything back 3 weeks. Yeah.
I don't think anybody outside of the casual GA follower who really loved the tradition of the third Sunday in September and the first Sunday in September for the hurling final, anyone who's involved with a club, any GA members, as opposed to those who just love going to watch their county play and maybe wouldn't have that much of an interaction with the association on a week-to-week basis in their lives, the thoughts of going all the way back to the third Sunday in September, I don't think anyone really sees that as a runner.
No.
But mid-August.
Can I just say one thing though? If you're a sub on a team, this condensed season is a nightmare to try and get into the team. Because, and I was saying it to someone recently, if we played on we mightn't play for 4 weeks between championship games. Too long. If it was 3 weeks, it would have been perfect. But like, we'd have played so much football in that 3.5 weeks. We'd say 3 weeks. That you could play yourself into the team.
Yeah.
Or some could play themselves off it. Whereas now, the 2 weeks, the first week is recovery. Well, first 5 or 6 days. You might play a small bit of football for 20 minutes, but you're trying to mind most of the start.
So you can't impress in training anymore.
You can't impress. So, like, you're looking at most teams, it's very hard to break into a team unless you come on 5 minutes and absolutely cause a wreck.
The opposite extreme is that if you pick up an injury, your season's
you can't
gone.
get back. Yeah.
You can't get back in time. Like a hamstring.
A hamstring and...
A grade 2 hamstring tear.
Yeah. Like, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks and that's only getting back in the pitch, really. Like,
yeah.
Do you know? So you're gone. So there's arguments. Obviously, we couldn't have it as long as it was, but I was actually only looking at that because I was looking at the Kerry team. I was like, who comes in? I was like, do you know, if you're trying to find your form, where did you find it? You're not playing with your club. You have 2 weeks between games. They're not going to
no A's versus B's games.
No. And like, even as a player, like, there was nothing better. You have a good training session. You could be marking Mark Shea or Tom Sullivan in Connaught, and you're like going, if I can beat the boys, I can beat anybody.
Yeah. But do the players not like this?
Oh, they definitely do.
New system.
Definitely the fellas starting do.
Okay.
Because you're playing all the time and it's brilliant. But if you're not playing, you're kind of, how do you get in? Like, and I know they loved the 2 weeks and the lack of less training, and I would have loved it. But I can guarantee you, if I wasn't starting and you're trying to get in, you're like, how do I get in here? And that's, like, you'll never get it 100%. But that was always my thing. If you're on the team, it's brilliant. You play your game, you have a couple of days recovery. The weekend, you might do a bit of livelier stuff. And then it's tapered down, you're preparing, and then you play the game, and then it's the same for 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. But if you're trying to come back from injury and you're trying to impress,
it's a nightmare.
Yeah. That's what I'd imagine. But you can't have it every way. Like, I always felt that 4 weeks was too long. I thought 3 weeks would have been perfect. But definitely the season's better. But my big issue with it is, I feel like it's such a rush to get it over and done with. I genuinely feel that. The build up to games, there's no real build up because you're just off one. And
you can't really sell a game anymore.
No,
because there's just not enough time to promote it, to get the buzz around it, to get people talking about matchups and team selections and who's fit and who's working their way back. And
we said it 2 weeks ago that if a few of the Dublin lads walked in, we'd know the name, we might recognise the face. And I think a lot of players are maybe losing out because look, there's an awful lot to go with being a GA player, and you get a couple of gigs here and there, and there's opportunities that come your way, and you get to know a fella's personalities, which might open up doors when you finish or whatever. For everything that's available now, we don't really get to see the players all the time because there's no time to, let's say if you're a Kerry player, to go to Dublin to do things you're training. And do you know, I just feel like the players, I know it's great to play the games every 2 weeks, but they are missing out on a small bit.
Yeah, it is far too condensed. And for someone to say who's working in the media like myself, I was able to make the time to try and watch as much football as I could at the weekend, and I still haven't seen anything bar 4 minutes highlights of Cork Clare, for example. So I have to try and, it was obviously a belter of a game. I have to try and find a way now to go and watch that back. There were 6 or 7 matches of the weekend that I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a similar case this weekend. Like, we've got another round of the Munster Hurling Championship, Leinster Hurling Championship, Dublin Meath. We've got brilliant games in Ulster. And it'll be impossible to find the time to watch them all this weekend. We're being spoiled with brilliant games. We just don't have enough time to see them all. There isn't enough time for them to breathe. And if they can just find a way, and I look, in fairness to the GA, and I've made this argument many times in the last few weeks, you can't ever accuse them of being stuck in the mud and cemented through tradition or retaining something just for the sake of it. Like, if you think the association, the structure of the competition, they've been turned on their head in the last 10 years. They've changed the structure of the championship again for next year. So probably too much chopping and changing. And there's no question that the most proactive president in the association's history, Jarlath Burns, is thinking about these kind of things. How can we find an extra month in the calendar?
Yeah.
And if they do that, if they can just find 2 or 3 weeks, space for a proper league finals, space for All-Ireland final football and hurling replays, those sorts of things, just to breathe a bit more, there is scope for this to be improved even further. I think in the last 45 minutes, you and I, we solved all of the problems with the GA.
Very close, isn't it?
We have. So, last bit of the conversation is, where are we in terms of the Football Championship? Right now, the bookies have Kerry 5-2 favourites. Then you've got Donegal at 10-3. Dublin are third favourites, and Donegal are coming in, Galway are coming in fourth favourites. No real mention of Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone there. Armagh, the reigning All-Ireland champions. No one ever seems to talk about them as being potential Sam Maguire winners again this year. So, having seen everybody at least once, some more than others, obviously not an awful lot of people might have seen Dublin play Wicklow in Auckland, for example, but where are you on Kerry now? Are you more convinced or less so about their credentials to regain Sam?
4 or 5 games into the league, no, they weren't going to do it. 2 or 3 games later, yes, there was no one going to beat them. And after the weekend, a couple of chinks kind of bit worrying. Conditions weren't great. I do think they took their foot off the pedal, and when the momentum swung, as we said, it's very hard to get it back.
Are Kerry and Croke Park an entirely different proposition?
Yeah, I think
particularly with these rules, because no one kicks the ball better than they do. Nobody foot passes the ball better than they do.
The first 23 or 4 minutes, whatever it was, without doing anything spectacular, some of the scores they got, they just looked easy.
Yeah.
But
like some of the balls that Dylan Gainey's playing into David Clifford,
it looks so easy because they do it so quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's a case of, it was like Dylan got one ball and he kind of just kicked it over his shoulder. The thing is, like,
this lovely angled ball into Clifford.
Ball, David got it, one look over his shoulder, saw where your man was, and swung it over the other shoulder. But not rocket science, not great. You're not going, oh geez, what a pass. Very simple, but it was done at speed with no plays, chemistry. If I can get it there, David knows he's going to go here, and it, like, just repetition. And they did that really well. The worry is with Kerry when the momentum swung, and David, I think, had 5 points before 25 minutes. when the momentum swung, they found it hard to get him involved in the game. And it's a case of, look, you need to get your best players on the ball, and they didn't get him on the ball enough after that point. So it is a case of, because you're going to have, every team's going to have a purple patch in every game. How can you get the likes of David on the ball? Obviously, Shawnee Shea's back now. He came on the last, I think he's missed, I don't know, did I hear 8 or 9 weeks? So he obviously wasn't at the fitness levels, but geez, when you're looking at, obviously he's a quality player. When you're looking at honesty and a fella who's our leadership, give me the ball and I'll do something, or I'll...
Missed 8 or 9 weeks, also took 8 or 9 steps for that goal. How does
foul.
that goal stand?
Yeah, but you know what it is? It's once there's a foul at all, the ref's giving it back. It's as if he's taking a play. It's wrong.
But he's not signalling an advantage though.
No, but
it was even live. You could tell that he has taken almost double figures in steps there. Like that's a free out, and that's the game.
But it happens so often now. It happens in every game. No, it doesn't always lead to a goal. But like you're going through, you have your 4 steps. You're about to take a play. I pull your arm.
But that's a foul.
That's a foul.
The referee wasn't giving a foul here.
Well, like that was my thing. Like obviously I was at the game. It's funny. I went up to the game. I told herself, I was there, I must go to the game because you see so much more when you're there live. And then I came home and I go, I must rewatch that game because there's so much you don't see live.
But it works both ways. That look, the Tony Kenny goal in the All Ireland final last year, he took about 10 steps, and you would have been denied one of the great All Ireland.
We were still going on about Owen Murchan there from the All Ireland.
Yeah, those they do need to be pulled up.
They do.
And like I was at Tip Limerick at the weekend, the referee blew for 4 throw balls. And on replay, he looked like he'd got all of them spot on, and one of them led to the equaliser that saw temporary snatch and draw. We want this to be stamped out. But 6 or 7 steps is one thing. Yeah. We always say to the kids we're coaching,
most players
take your 5, 6, 7.
6.
Yeah, but 8, 9, 10, which is what Shawnee clearly took. Obviously, the finish was brilliant. Yeah. But he ran a long way without a hop or a solo. Yeah. But anyway, we've got distracted there.
Yeah, no, I still think...
do Kerry have depth, though? Like, when you compare their squad to what Donegal are producing at the moment, when it comes to an All-Ireland semi-final in Croke Park where it's level and they need to shake things up a little bit...
This is...
who changes the game for them?
Take David out, we're in trouble. I know, like you said, the same with Dublin, take Con out, you're in trouble. Galway aren't the same without Shane Walsh. Galway, for me, have the best depth of everyone.
No Walsh or Comer at the weekend.
And that's been the case for the last 2 seasons they've played. I'd say the majority of their games are out both of them. No, Cotton, I think, the All-Ireland last year, because they had so many fellas out for such long periods. They were whatever happened to them in the All-Ireland final, but nobody had that momentum going into it, really, because they'd missed so much. For me, Galway have the best squad, but there's something missing with them. And I saw it in the end of the league, because I think Joyce wanted to win the league. There was something missing. I don't know, do they get ahead of themselves? Do they get a bit lax and they can't turn it around? I think they're maybe missing that bit of red mist. I think they're missing a bit of nastiness. I think the best teams have nastiness that even their best players want to wrestle.
So the likes of Johnny Marr and Killy McDade, they don't bring that sort of edge.
No, they're hardy. They're hardy. Can they be nasty? I don't know. I'm not saying I want them to go around and be nasty, but you have to have fellas who really want to fight if they have to. I actually always remember saying it to I said it to Eamon one of my last years. I maybe it was my last year. Myself and Danny were on the bench, and Mayo actually. And I remember it was one of the only times I ever rang. I was there. Myself and Danny are on the bench. Would you throw one of us on? The worst we're going to do is just fight. Yeah. And I remember saying that was my thing, and I wasn't like I was a fighter, but I'll fight you if I want to win the game. And that's you have to have that nastiness. There's so many lovely footballers out there. They're lacking that bit of red mist.
That's definitely not something Donegal lack.
No.
Would they be your favourites right now?
Yeah.
They're going to take some beating.
Yeah, like you mentioned Oisin Gallen. Oisin Gallen, when Michael Murphy stepped away, seemed to take that mantle as the main forward. Now he's not on the 15 at the moment. No, maybe that was an injury, whatever. Like he seemed too good a player to leave off the bench, on the bench. But they have that option now to leave a guy like that out. You mentioned it earlier, the amount of 2-point kickers they potentially have in their team, but their running style.
What do you do with Dara Boyle and Peter Mogan? How do you stop those two boys? Ryan McHugh.
Yeah. You're not going to run with him all day. You want to have some engine to go with him all day. I mean, it's fine. If you have one person that can tag Ryan McHugh. Do you have another one to tag up wheel? Probably not.
And another from Hogan.
Yeah.
And then a Fetcher to try and compete with Kieran Thompson.
Frightening going forward. Like Kieran Thompson, just a beautiful left foot. Like, and we're not even talking about the danger man. We're not even talking about Michael Murphy. If they throw him top of the square, who is going to stop him? I said this a few times about Aidan Shea. Don't think there's a man in the country that can stop him if he got proper ball. Michael Murphy's the exact same because he did it for years where he did get proper ball and he was unstoppable. McBrearty has that zip, looks fitter.
He looks leaner than he's ever looked. He's the captain this year, which is probably driving him on even more.
Do you know? Like,
they're the one team now as a dub that would scare me the most.
I just look at them and go...
And I feel I left it behind them last year as well. Like there's a desperation and an edge to them.
I felt that they were ahead of their time last year. I think even they surprised themselves, and I think it probably gave them more confidence going, we're only getting started here. We're a year, 2 years early here. All of a sudden they're probably going, these teams that are supposedly better than us, they're not better than us. We can beat them. I think they're the most dangerous in terms of, I think their running power is frightening. Their speed, just the way they break. People give out about the hand passing. They do a lot of hand passing. I don't mind the hand passing when it's done at speed and its bodies going everywhere, and it's a bit like rugby, to be honest. You know, they use these diagonal
angles
lines
of running.
Yeah.
And their conditioning and their fitness levels.
Yeah. And when you can finish it off, it's different. Hand passing is different when it's sideways, back. They don't do it that way.
Yeah.
I think for GA, for football, and I hope it doesn't happen, I hope Kerry do it, a Galway or Donegal win, I think, would be unbelievable.
Well, when we were chatting before we started recording, we were talking about the potential for a fifth different championship winner in 5 seasons. And that hasn't happened since Tyrone won the All-Ireland in 2003. So that's 22 years ago. And if you had said to somebody when Dublin were winning the 6 in a row under Desi, that, don't worry, Tyrone are going to win the All-Ireland next year, and then we're going to have 5 consecutive different champions. We'll have Tyrone, we'll have Kerry, we'll have Dublin, we'll have Armagh, and then, as you say, maybe a Donegal or a Galway. That is the GA, that's the football championship in a position where it has not been in so long.
Yeah, but that...
We can throw a blanket over 7 teams.
Yeah, but that's what you want. Like, everybody starts... I think for so long it was a case of, obviously, Dublin were winning, but if it's not Dublin, it's going to be Kerry. And if Kerry don't win it this year, Dublin will win it again. And it got boring, and we saw that in the crowds that were going to games. We saw that a lot of the games were boring. It was, how can we stop Dublin winning? How can we stop Kerry winning? And it just got boring. But at the moment, you're kind of looking and going, could you put your hand in your heart and say, I actually think Kerry are going to win it? No, I couldn't say it. Like, there is, like, we haven't mentioned Armagh. They're the All-Ireland champions. No, they haven't got going this year, but we've seen how good they are when they do get going.
Put up a massive score against Antrim. A couple of decent wins in the league. The All-Ireland champions coming in under the radar is kind of it's a paradox. It doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. But
even Tyrone, since they won it, I remember the year they won it, and I hated seeing them win it, but I thought, this is good for the game. And I thought, geez, they've had an awful lot of underage success. And you haven't been able to get it together since it. But every time you're talking about them, you're kind of going, they're dangerous.
And I wonder, are they coming again?
Yeah. And they're just not. I don't put them in the conversation.
Well, let's have a look at them against Donegal, and we'll get a real feel as to where they are. And obviously they're in the All-Ireland series. They're going to get out of their group. They're going to get to Croke Park, and Tyrone never seem to fear anybody when they get to Croke Park.
I don't think they'll fear anyone. There's something, they're just not clicking. No, having said that, they have the 2 Canavans who I would pay to watch train. Yeah. And I talked about that bit of nastiness. I guarantee you, Dara Canavan would wrestle you to the ground.
Just like his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the bravest and the hardiest men, despite being one of the most gifted footballers of all time.
But that's it, like, he's flair and creativity.
But you pay the admission fee just to watch the 2 of those boys play alone. Well, we mentioned everyone apart from the Dubs, so. Well, although I'm sure there's probably Mayo fans, Roscommon fans, listen to us, Monaghan fans. Well, hang on, we might have a say in this. They're maybe just on the next tier, just slightly outside it, and it would take something pretty special, I think, for any those 3 counties to be in an All-Ireland semi-final. But look,
I think so.
Who knows? By the way the rules have gone, you just don't know anymore, and that's why we're so enthused by what we're seeing, and it's why we're so desperate for it to be just spread out just that little bit longer.
Yeah.
Dublin play Meath this weekend. There is the hope, similar to the way Cork were going into the game against Kerry, that the gap is closed. Kerry have come back to Cork a bit. Dublin have come back towards Meath a bit. They weren't overly impressive in the league. Some really bad defeats, particularly away from home. They're on the road again this weekend. They're taking on Meath in O'Moore Park in Portlaoise. They weren't great against Wicklow. Meath, again, mixed league. They seem to be just behind Monaghan and Roscommon when it came to really getting into those two promotion places, and yet overturned a really large deficit against Offaly. I fully expected Offaly to go on and win that game. Meath had the wind, but they made it pay. Can Meath go to O'Moore Park in front of a big crowd this weekend and rattle the Dublin cage?
I think the fact that you're asking the question means we're going in the right direction. And the answer is yes. The other part of that answer is I could be made a fool of by saying yes. But I think if Meath go with that attitude of we're going to make this a battle, that's when you need your characters. And Dublin have lost, not saying they don't have characters now, but they've lost a lot of big characters, really big leaders. And if you look around their team now, there's a lot of inexperience. And not only inexperience that a lot of them haven't won, but they also haven't had any of these battles. Do you know? And I just think with the way the game is now, if Meath can get a run on them, make it a dogfight, anything can happen. I think that's the beauty of the way the games have gone and the new rules, that you're actually not ruling out anybody at the moment. And look, Meath were awful in the first half against Offaly, and you're thinking there's only one winner here. But that'll give them some belief, some confidence going into it. So I expect Dublin to get over it, but it is going to test them. But it could be exactly what they need to kickstart their season and give some of these newer players not a sense of belonging, but a kind of maybe a sense of belonging.
Make
really.
it their,
Do you know,
make it their team.
Do you know, yeah,
it's not their team yet.
That you have to go through these games and you have to go through these battles, and it's not all lovely in Croke Park and swinging over nice scores. That you have to go and get tight ground. And
I think it's brilliant the Leinster Council have taken these games out of Croke Park.
If this is in Croke
Kildare
Park,
Louth
we're not
in
having a
O'Connor
conversation.
Park in Tullamore on Sunday has the potential to be another really brilliant
That could
game
be
of
a
football.
cracker.
And obviously the loser's gone from the championship.
Yeah.
So there is so much on the line in that game. That's one you could argue that is the biggest game of the weekend.
That could be the
because
biggest
it's
game
not
of the
just
weekend.
a win in that game, a place in the Leinster final. The loser's gone to the Tailteann Cup, and I just think that there's a huge amount at stake there.
For a Kildare, I actually think going to the Tailteann Cup could be good for them. That's my honest thing. I think
Well, they were in it last year.
Yeah,
and
I
didn't
just
win
think,
it.
No, I think they could win it this year. I just think you have to. I think going to the All Ireland series won't help them on their journey.
I think Kildare will be devastated if they don't win that game this weekend.
They'd definitely be
And
devastated.
having made the strides they did under Ger Brennan to be back in the Tailteann Cup, having finished 6th in Division 2. And again, it brings us back to the bloody championship structures.
Yeah, but I just think Loud, I think for Kildare's I think they're behind Loud in terms of their progression, and they're rebuilding and they're trying to start something. I just think going down and going, right lads, we shouldn't be here. Let's go and prove it. And that's when you kind of see what they're made of. Because I think if they go into the All-Ireland series, for what? I know that's where everyone wants to be. Are they going to do anything? I don't think so. I just think certain teams.
They've got promoted. They're a Division 2 team as of next year. I'm working on the Dublin Meath game this Sunday.
Yeah.
But that I'd love to see that game.
Oh yeah, I'm the same.
Because I think it's going to be hopefully a big crowd and two teams really going at it hammer and tongs.
But I actually think just the way the games have gone, I think it will bring out the crowd like that. The fact that it's not in Croke Park is brilliant, and the atmosphere. I just think the atmosphere will add obviously to both occasions. But going back to the Dublin players, most of them won't be used to this.
Yeah, as opposed to a double header in Croke Park and still only 40,000 in the stadium, and never at any point actually having 40,000 there at the same time. We're going to have two really good games back to back, and we all grew up, particularly Dubs. The Dublin Meath rivalry was just epic for so long, and they haven't beaten Dublin since 2010.
Yeah.
And before that, I think you had to go back to 2001 for the last time they beat them. So it's one championship win against the Dubs in 24 years. I'm not saying they're going to win this Sunday. And just like you were you didn't want Cork to turn Kerry over on Saturday, but you acknowledge how brilliant it would have been for the Munster Championship had they done so.
Yeah.
If Meath were to win on Sunday, it's just all bets are off for everything.
I'll be unbelievable. But when you take off your supporter's hat or former player hat, and you think, what's good for the game here? What's good for, imagine being a Meath player. But that's the carrot.
Yeah.
You have a chance to beat Dublin for the first time in 20 years. Do you say 20 years?
2010 they beat them. It's the last time Dublin were beaten in the Leinster Championship. And before that, I think you have to go back to 2001.
Yeah. So you're actually creating history. The amount of players from Meath that played their whole career and never beat Dublin. Do you know?
And the fact that both teams are already qualified for the All-Ireland is totally irrelevant.
Yeah, and just on the bringing games out of Croke Park, which I think is brilliant, because it's too big. I went to Páirc Uí Chaoimh the last day. I know there's only 15,000, but what a stadium.
Yeah.
Like, it needs more games.
And these provincial grounds, O'Connor Park, O'Moore Park, they need more games like this.
Oh, they need more games, yeah.
I can't remember being this buzzed about the Football Championship in quite some time.
The only bother is with all these good games coming up, there's not a hope herself is going to leave me watch all of them.
Well, look, you have to try and find a way around that. It's been brilliant. Darren, thanks, Willie.
No bother.
I'm not sure how many of the problems of the association we solved there, but I think we're in a good place. The rules have made a massive difference. We've got loads of good games, probably too many on top of each other. But look, that's a different argument, and I'm sure all that sort of stuff is being looked at. But thanks to Darren, we are going to be back with another episode of the William Hill Square Ball podcast next week with a brilliant guest. We're going to go back into the career of somebody who's been there and done that over the years. So all will be revealed in the coming days. Please do subscribe to our YouTube page. It's the Square Ball podcast on YouTube. You can review, leave a comment or two. Any thoughts you have on what we've been discussing here today. We might get to a couple of your comments in the first few minutes of next week's episode. Subscribe to the William Hill social media pages at William Hill Ireland on Instagram and Twitter. Loads of other good sports content on there as well. And then subscribe wherever you get your podcast, be it Spotify or elsewhere. Leave a little review. Tell us how you think we're doing. Any suggestions you might have for future guests. We'd love to hear from you. Any comments on what you've heard. And as always, we encourage our viewers and our listeners to dive deep into the archive and sift through some of the brilliant chats that we've had with Gaelic footballers and hurlers and camogie players over the last 12 to 15 months. We're very proud of the work we've done so far. And again, we said last week, we're only a little portion of the way through this second season of the Square Ball Pod. We've got some brilliant stuff coming your way. So until next week, thanks for listening.